you now know it's possible. A group of 5 team can make the college football playoff. We saw it last season. Cincinnati did it. They ran the table. They got in. They got beat, but they got in, and they did not get embarrassed in the playoff either. They're soon going to be joining the ranks of the Power 5 along with several other programs, but that's not until next year. So who could be this season's group of 5 darling? Maybe Cincinnati once again. Tom Fornelli is here to rank the top 5 group of 5 teams this season. Tom, before you rank those 5, I want to start with a team that you wanted to put in here, but our oversight committee overruled you that BYU is not a group of 5 team.
Yeah, BYU kind of lives in that limbo between not quite group of 5, but doesn't get the same treatment as a Power 5 program like Notre Dame does as an independent. But I think going into the 2022 season, while they don't qualify for that automatic group of 5 berth in the New Year's Six, I think if at the end of the year we could look around, BYU will be the best non-Power 5 conference or team in the country, because this is a very talented team that returns a lot and has a schedule that will give them plenty of chances to take advantage and to work their way up the rankings. I think this is a team that could be ranked in the top 15 come the end of the season, but for this exercise, we're not counting them.
Honorable mention, and you saw that schedule. That is that's the toughest schedule for a non-power program, I would say. And if they do run the table, which seems darn near impossible with that schedule, they would have to be in the playoff with that kind of challenge in front of them. 4 or 5 games against ranked teams. All right, so let's get into your top 5 group of 5 teams, starting at number 5, SMU, a team that started 7-0 last season and then fell apart at the end of the year.
Yeah, they have to avoid that same kind of situation this year. And there's also the fact that they have a coaching change in that Sonny Dykes has left to take over the TCU job. But while SMU fans are upset with him for leaving to go to a rival, he didn't leave the cupboard bare. And we've got a pretty good situation here in which Rhett Lashley, who has taken over the head coaching role, spent some time on Sonny Dykes' staff as the offensive coordinator at SMU and helped recruit just about half the roster that he's inheriting. So there's plenty of familiarity there. And that starts at the quarterback position with Tanner Mordecai, who had an excellent season last year. And I think that while the offense is going to look a little different this year under Rhett Lashley than it did Sonny Dykes, most of the same principles will return. This is still a team that's going to be running the ball and able to move the ball explosively through the air. They lose Danny Gray and Reggie Roberson at the receiver position, but Rashee Rice is a very capable player who had an excellent season for the Mustangs last year. And if you look on the defensive side of the ball, on the defensive front, the front 7, there's a lot of experience coming back. Where my one thing I worry about them, the Achilles heel, could be in the secondary. That's where they had trouble defensively last year. That helped contribute to their slide at the back end of the schedule that helped them get off to that finish poorly after a very hot start. But if you look at the schedule, they get TCU, Cincinnati, and Houston all at SMU this year. I think that plays to their benefit. They are one of the dark horses, I think, in the American Athletic Conference that are being overlooked a bit too much.
Yeah, they run the gauntlet, especially in conference play, as it compares to some of the other conference contenders who don't have to play all the other really good teams in that conference. Let's move on to the Sun Belt at number 4. Coastal Carolina is your 4th-ranked group of 5 team, 11 wins each of the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, this is a team that is a little bit different from the other teams that I have on my list here today, because when it comes to the group of 5, I think returning production is much more important, because these are programs that just don't recruit at the same level that the powers in the Power 5 conferences do. So to have that kind of continuity of roster and production is huge. That's not the case with Coastal Carolina. If you go by returning production, they rank 129th nationally, and that was with 130 teams last year. With James Madison showing up this season, we'll have 131. But what they do have coming back is quarterback Grayson McCall, who is one of the most exciting players in the country. Last year, he had a passing efficiency of 207.65. That's the best in the history of FBS football. He is a very good quarterback, and he plays in a very interesting offense that Jamie Chadwell has brought to Coastal Carolina that ask defensive coordinators around the country who have to face it. It is nearly impossible to prepare for. It is like a triple option offense, but with modern passing principles in the passing attack. 2 running backs in the backfield, 1 tight end. You never really know where the ball is going to go because it all depends on what the defense does. And Grayson McCall does an excellent job of analyzing the defense pre-snap and knowing where he's going to go with the ball. The biggest concern for me with the Chanticleers is defensively, they do lose a lot. And while the offense has been the star of the show for Coastal in recent seasons, the defense has been pretty solid. And if they do not have the same kind of production, as people don't step up, they could suffer. But I also think schedule-wise and in the Sun Belt team where Louisiana loses Billy Napier to Florida, App State's got some question marks going into the year, I do think Coastal will still prove to be the best team in the Sun Belt, but they might not get to that 10-11 win mark that they've set so many off in recent seasons.
And Sun Belt is a little bit different this season. They've added Marshall, Old Dominion, and Southern Miss. Back to the American we go at number 3. It's one of those teams leaving for the Big 12 next year, UCF. And it was a rough start to Gus Malzahn's tenure. He started 3-3, but a great way to end it. They finished with 9 wins, including a bowl win over Florida.
Yeah, this is a UCF team that I think could make a lot of noise in 2022. It could end up winning the American Athletic Conference because they didn't have, Dylan Gabriel left, transferred. He's the quarterback at Oklahoma now, but Gabriel missed a lot of last season with injury anyway, so it was somewhat of a blessing in disguise in that it allowed UCF to prepare for life post-Gabriel. And I think John Reese Plumlee, a transfer in from Ole Miss, is a perfect fit for what Gus Malzahn likes to do on offense. Him combined with Johnny Richardson and Isaiah Bowser at running back, which are kind of like the lightning and thunder combination, the classic big play guy and the big bruiser type. This is an offense that I think is going to put up a lot of points. It is going to move quickly, and it is going to be hard for teams to keep pace with. And then the one thing that people kind of ignored last year with this UCF team and Gus Malzahn's first season, because when you think of Gus Malzahn, you think of his offense. But what really improved last year for UCF was the defensive side of the ball. That was the one difference from the Scott Frost era going into the Josh Heupel era, where the defensive performance kind of started to fall off, and we saw UCF not really competing at the same level. Last year, it jumped back up. The secondary was excellent. They had an excellent pass rush, and while they lose a few key players, there's plenty returning that I think that this defense is still going to perform at a high level. And if it does, the Knights are going to be a legitimate contender in the American Athletic Conference this year.
And really, Tom, all their big games are at home at the Bounce House. They host SMU, Cincy, Louisville, and Georgia Tech. The big road game is at Memphis this season. So UCF is the number 3 ranked Group of 5 team, according to Tom Fornelli. At number 2, we find the team that broke that glass ceiling last year, the Cincinnati Bearcats. Luke Fickell still running things, but they've got to hit the ground running. They go to Arkansas, number 19 in the country, to start the year.
Yeah, this is a team that just loses so much from that team that did reach the college football playoff last year and finally broke through for the Group of 5. But as great of a job as Luke Fickell has done, and as great of a job as I think he's going to continue doing, I do not think Cincinnati has reached that level of recruiting to where they can replace 9 players who were drafted in the NFL draft last spring and just keep the same kind of pace that they had last season. So I expect there to be somewhat of a step back. And then you add in the fact that they've got a first-year offensive coordinator in Gino Guidugli who's taking over. The quarterback competition not settled yet. You've got Ben Bryant, who is your stereotypical big-armed pocket passer, going against Evan Prater, who is a 4-star local product who has more of a run element to his game. He's got a big arm as well. We don't know who the quarterback is going to be yet. We've got a new offensive coordinator. You're seeing on the schedule there that game against Arkansas to start the season. That's going to be a really tough test. The good news is the entire offensive line that started in the Cotton Bowl is back, and I think that gives them a nice boost to start the season. But there are too many question marks for me right now on the offensive side of the ball. The defensive side of the ball lost just as much. It's too talented of a team to think that they're going to fall off the face of the earth, but I do think that this is a team that's probably going to lose 3 games, maybe win 10, and not be quite the clear-cut leader that it was in the American last season. I think that other teams have improved. I think they're taking a step back. They still have the capability of winning the conference, and they still very much have the capability of being the Group of 5 team that gets that automatic berth in a New Year's Six Bowl. But as far as the playoff discussion goes, I don't think that's in the cards for the Bearcats this year. All
right, counting down the top 5 teams in the Group of 5, according to Tom Fornelli. And number 1, the Houston Cougars. And, Tom, they don't play Cincinnati or UCF in the regular season at all.
Yeah, that's a big boost for them, I think, in the regular season, in that they won't get them until the conference championship game. And you look at this Houston team going into 2022. When Dana Holgorsen first took over in 2019, there was a lot of controversy about him basically redshirting the season. It led to De'Aaron King taking the year off and then ending up transferring to Miami. And a lot of key players sat out because he wanted to build for what this season is supposed to be. And then, you throw in the COVID year, giving an extra year of eligibility. All of that's culminating in a team that's coming back in 2022 that's talented and has plenty of experience. And we start at quarterback with Clayton Tune, who pretty much has mastered the entire offense. It feels like he's been in it for a decade at this point. There's nothing in there that he does not know how to do it right now. They lost running back Alton McCaskill, who had a fantastic season. They lost him to a torn ACL in the spring, but I do think they have plenty of other guys who will be able to step in and take over for him. They've got talent at receiver. On the defensive side of the ball, Logan Hall was a monster on the interior of the defensive line. They will miss him. He's in the NFL, but they've got 6 of their starting 8 on the 2 deep on the defensive liner back. They are still deep. They are still very disruptive. They have good linebackers and excellent secondary. I think that this is a Houston team that is the favorite to win the American Athletic Conference, and that makes it, in my mind, the favorite to get to the New Year's Six Bowl. And if it plays well enough, it's got a tough schedule to start where UTSA and Texas Tech on the road aren't pushovers. Those will be significant tests for them. But if they get through that, I think things set up for Houston to make a possible run to an undefeated regular season. And if that's the case, they will be in the discussion for a college football playoff berth. I think that's a little bit too high of a reach, but I still think this is the best team in the AAC, and they will get the New Year's Six berth.
I think the Big 12 will like your rankings. Your top 3 teams are all going to the Big 12 next season, and your honorable mention, who we didn't let you rank, BYU, also going to the Big 12 next season. Tom Fornelli with his top 5 group of 5 teams here as we get set to kick off the season, Week 0 on Saturday. We've got Week 0 storylines on the latest Cover 3 podcast. Tom Fornelli, a part of that, host of the Cover 3 podcast. They break down Nebraska Northwestern as well. That game taking place in Ireland, probably the most interesting game of Week 0.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.